Saturday, Melrose Mountain, Tryon, North Carolina. Commitment. What is a commitment? Well, we find less and less people willing to make them. Just recently, we were invited to participate in some training at an associational office on how to share the wordless book or to use the colors of the scriptures and to make balloon animals and to paint faces so that you could be a witness for Christ at children's events. That commitment meant getting up at 6 o'clock this morning, rushing around the house, driving down the mountain, going to the local church, meeting up with other people, driving another 30 minutes to an associational office, and then sitting from 9 o'clock until 12 o'clock, learning some basic skills on how to witness effectively to children. Commitment. The book of Nehemiah is an interesting book. It's an Old Testament book. You might wonder where it is, and if you were to go through 1st and 2nd Kings and then 1st and 2nd Chronicles, you just go one more book, Ezra, and then you'd be at Nehemiah. In other words, it would be the second prophetic book after 2nd Chronicles. It's about midway through the Bible. It's written about 464 years before Christ. That's only 64 years before the silent years before Christ was born. It's really an incredible book because Nehemiah had never seen Jerusalem. And yet, when he heard the reports of God's city, the Jerusalem that so many had told him about, and then he went to make his own inspection, and he saw the walls knocked down, the gates burned, he wept. Because you see, to Nehemiah, the city of Jerusalem was a representation of God. Now, he didn't worship the city, but he worshiped the God who had established the city. The God of provision, the God of promise, and the God of people. And the very first thing that Nehemiah did in chapter 1, verse 5, is he prayed. I beseech thee, he said. He interceded on behalf of the people in the city. When he made his personal inspection of the city, it was a mess. And he called the people to commitment. Let's rebuild, he said. Let's no longer let Jerusalem be a reproach against God. Some mocked, some opposed. But Nehemiah said, God, the God of heaven, will give us success. In chapter 3, there's teamwork, organization, and of course that very special word, commitment. Each person was requested to build the section of wall in front of their house. That's personal accountability. There was more opposition. Guess what? There was more prayer. The people had to work hard. And they had to have a mind to work. It says in chapter 4, verse 6, the people did have a mind to work. It's one thing to commit to something, but it would be something else to turn over in bed this morning and go back to sleep. You see, you have to have a mind to work. You have to have a mind to follow through with your commitment. Now, they had problems from outside and they had problems from inside. When Nehemiah called the people to commitment and to work, they had opposition from their enemies. They had all kinds of physical threats. You know what they did? They prayed. They had problems from within side. Problems amongst the people that were doing the work and problems with the people that were making and charging usury. You know what they did? They prayed. Nehemiah had an objective to glorify God by rebuilding the city. Now, he worked in teamwork with Ezra. Nehemiah was the governor and Ezra was the priest. And together they would build not only the walls and the city's security, but they would build the spiritual base of the people of Jerusalem. Incredibly, find in chapter 6 that in 52 days, the walls and the gates were restored. 52 days. When have you ever seen anything completely finished in 52 days? And when they finished, the surrounding nations took note, and they acknowledged that God must have been involved for anything to happen that quickly. It was a testimony to God. And it all came out of a word that so few of us like to make: commitment. I don't know what church you go to. I don't know how old you are, how young you are. But I do know this: the only way to glorify God is to commit to Him. And He selected the local church as the way to reach the world for Christ. If that's not what your church is doing, then maybe you need to find a different church. But if your church is committed to reaching this world for Christ, why don't you commit with them? And you'd be amazed, just as in the book of Nehemiah, what prayer, a mind to work, and commitment will accomplish. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.